What's going on, guys? Fearmaky here, bringing you another guide. This time we're doing the Redneck. Man, we're almost there. We're almost at the end. We chose to leave the Redneck, the Marauder, and the Shield Lancer and Amazon for last. Because of Tig's request and friends, etc. Anyways, the Redneck, man, pretty fun class to play. But I'll be honest, no BS. Pretty glass cannon. Pretty glass cannon. I didn't have to work for it as hard as I did on like one or two other classes, to clear the 500. The damage is pretty good. The clear time wasn't that bad, but like if you get hit by anything, you're gonna die, and especially fighting bosses. I was able to clear it like 3 or 4 times during my testing. I'm not gonna be sitting there progressing and pushing to wormholes 600 or 800. I'm sure the class could do it. Obviously, you would get more hero levels as well. But, the class is definitely fun to play. You do have to play it more of a range style class compared to other classes. You got to remember you're throwing out a chainsaw, that a chain attached to it, and you got to play from ranged. That way you can survive and you can clear the wormhole. But the Redneck's got some cool tool sets. He has a pickup rate ability, which calls for a truck that comes flying around on the screen and just, automatic machine gun and everything down that you see. It deals a lot of damage. And then it also puts the oil spills and burns all the mobs that are standing on it. Pretty fun, man. Pretty fun class. Then you have the Moonshine Molotov, which is the highest ability he has, which throws the oil. It throws a Moonshine Molotov, which explodes burning into burning oil, applying burning to the enemies. This is by far the most damaging ability you have. So you put this underneath an elite and just watch him shred. And then we have the Chainsaw Massacre as one of the active abilities as well. The logger starts spinning his chainsaw, damaging and slowing all enemies around him. Pretty fun as well, very strong. I highly recommend it. As part of the build. And then we put the other passive points into the Chainsaw Mastery just to boost the damage of the two-hander that we're using, that we'll get into here on the build. But, really fun class, really cool to play. You definitely have to be safe. It's completely different play style compared to majority of the other classes I played. But I had a lot of fun with it. I could see why, a lot of people, likes the Redneck. And I can see how it will be really, good during Inferno 5 clears, for speed farming. Definitely a fun class to start out with. And I think the items for the Redneck also are very cheap. Like, they're really cheap. So if you roll a Redneck, go out there, you'll be able to put a build together really easily because their items are going for really dirt cheap on the auction house. And I hope it stays that way. I hope after people watching this video doesn't hike up the price. The Redneck is in a good spot compared to where the developers want the class to be balance-wise as far as damage. Yes, a lot of the other classes are outperforming it, but the other classes are going to be brought down to a reasonable level come Season 12, I think. At least that's what they have told me. So you can't go wrong with the Redneck for Season 11 and also going into Season 12, because then if one thing is for sure, the Redneck is not going to be toned down. They're not going to be nerfed, all right? And I was able to kill this boss here. This is a nice trick so you guys should see. I'm standing on the bench. You take 0 damage while on the bench. So I'm glad I got this stage, or else it would have been pretty tough to try to kill the boss. But over here, we'll do Damien. Show you guys. His damage isn't as crazy compared to the other classes on Damien, but definitely able to do it. And like I said, glass cannon, if you watch closely, I almost die here. I wasn't being careful. Because usually I just come in and wreck Damien. But you can see my health there, I almost died. So you got to be careful. Then I'm like, I decide to play the Redneck like it's supposed to be played. Remember, I'm not the master of all of these classes. I do put them to the test as far as meta and damage-wise. But that's it. Let's get into the build. Alright guys, we're going to dive in here to the skills and meta gear. So on your action bar, you want Pick Up Raid. Second skill, you want Chainsaw Massacre. Third skill, you want Revved Up. And on your right mouse button or your fourth skill, you want Moonshine Molotov. For the gear setup, I went with Pendant of Eternity. Notice that it's only at 100%. The reason for that is the auction house prices now are ridiculous. So the chances of getting, 2, 3, or 4 of these items and then satanic dicing it to 115%, extremely rare. If you are lucky to get one, all you need to do is bring it to 106 quality to get the additional talent anyways. And I wouldn't risk going any further unless you're filthy rich. For the helm, we went with the Burning Gaze. This is at 115. The reason for it is for the 10% crit rate, 21% crit damage, cooldown reduction. It's a very good helm all the way around. We're socketed in Ox runes on the helm. On the neck, I went with Dow runes, and the reason for that is to reach the breakpoint, the attack speed breakpoint. So I went with it on the neck and on the ring for the attack speed. Everything else is Ox runes. But anyways, helm, we went Burning Gaze. For the charm, I went with Havoc for the 7% crit rate, 30% crit damage. This is massive. This yielded the most damage on the charm by far. For the weapon, we went with Big Joe. Very good weapon. Best in slot for the class. And what Big Joe does is, the Big Joe ability is every level gives you 3% chance to throw your chainsaw, just like the Marauder chains throws out his chains. I will put the graph here from the spreadsheet and what you need to craft the Big Joe, and let you guys know that. I'll do the same thing for the Havoc as well. For the chest, I went with Mayhem. By far the highest DPS chest. I went with the fire damage one, but it doesn't really make much of a difference if you have fire on it or not. The biggest reason on the chest is the crit rate, crit damage, 15% CDR. It does have huge strength in it as well, but also Moonshine Madness. I couldn't get one to max it out. I wasn't investing too much time on rolling a maxed out one, but this will increase your attack speed. And I'll put the picture on the video here as well to show you how to get this chest. For the gloves, I went with Assassin's Mitts, one of the highest meta gloves in the season across the board through multiple classes, as you guys have seen. For the belt, this time around, we went with Tribal Belt. Really good belt, really strong. I did go Ox runes on it, but it has, insane percent strength on it, which makes it really strong when you're doing this class. For the ring, I went with Demon Eye Ring for the plus to all talents. For the potion, Bottle of Sake, crit chance, crit damage. Boots, Assassin Shadow Boots, all with Ox runes as well. On the Mercenary, I went with Poison Ivy, Helmet the Dominator, Shroud of Elements. Poison Ivy because of multi-shot to stack the elemental break really fast on the target. Okay. Relics, I went with this setup. Hero levels, 50 in Ancient Power, 50 in Gut Ripper, 50 in attack speed to reach the breakpoint, and then dump the rest into strength all the way through. Mercenary talents, 30 in multi-shot, 30 in rapid fire, 30 in piercing shots, and dump the rest in scatter shot, 1 point in every tree. So I edited the video. Before we get into the talents, I got a quick disclaimer. In respecing back and forth for testing purposes, I just press every button, then put all the points in immediately quick after I have figured out the meta talent setup. And I forgot in the clicking too fast, forgot to put 1 point into Logger's Endurance. This is massive for survivability, and I definitely recommend putting points in this. And if anything, I would even drop the 8 points in combustible oil to lose a little bit more damage and put it into more survivability, because the Redneck is very squishy. It's like a glass cannon. So I'm going to be showing you here the talent meta setup, going forward and explaining each talent. Just remember, you're going to see 0 on Logger's Endurance, but that's an error. There should be 1 point in it, and then the rest put into combustible oil. If you want more survivability, just put all the points in it, and just put 1 point into here, and you'll be fine. For the talents, we maxed out Pickup Raid on the Hillbilly tree. Calls for Hillbilly's pickup truck to raid his enemies. This did, I'm looking at my notes here, did the 3rd highest damage when I was testing it. You know, bare bones. Moonshine Molotov, we maxed it out. This is the highest damage that you're going to get. This was the #1 damage out of all the talents that I tested. And then we maxed out Chainsaw Massacre. Chainsaw Massacre was in 2nd place for the highest damage. And then we maxed out Chainsaw Mastery as well to boost the two-handed damage of the chainsaw. I think it goes from 45% to 91%. So it's massive. And it does work. It actually works compared to some other talents. And then I put the rest into combustible oil. This yielded the most damage. Could have been a lucky proc, but majority of the times it yielded the most damage. And it made sense because your Molotov is your highest damage and ability. So complementing that with combustible oil yielded more damage. I also tested putting the rest of the points in revved up. The damage was pretty good as well. Also tested the additional armor break. It was also pretty good damage. So you can't go wrong by putting the rest of the points in armor break or revved up or go combustible oil. This yielded the most damage consistently and proc the highest. But these were pretty close. I mean, you're talking 5 to 10 million, 15 million within range of all of them. So they're all pretty viable. And that is it for the talents. I will do a damage test here. This is using the meta build. Let's see what we get here. And there you have it, 420 million. That's the highest I was able to hit. Not bad for this build. And we'll get into the build variants here. Alright, so before we get into some build variants, I just want to show you something quick. My attack speed is 5.71 or 5.15. The moment I proc revved up, you can see it goes to 596. But when I attack in Moonshine procs, which it will proc right away, and I pop the buff, I'm at 652. 6.5 attacks per second is pretty good. According to Wooksy, the developer, the attacks do carry over, so you don't lose it. Alright, so if you're good at math, you know what I'm talking about. So if you're doing 6.5 attacks in 1 second, you're only going to do 6. I'll try to explain this as simple as possible. When Wooksy sent me the message on Discord, it was very confusing as well. Okay, so what this means is you can only ever do a whole number attack per second. So if you're at 6.52 attacks per second, you're only going to deal 6 attacks in that second. The 0.52 attack speed will carry over in that 1 second combat duration. Then in your second attack, you'll do 6.5 attacks per second plus the 0.52 that carried over. Therefore, now you're at 7 attacks per second. Okay, in that time. And then the 0.4 will carry over. And that's a 2 second combat duration. And the third time you attack will be 6.52 plus the 4. That'll be 6 attacks in that second. The 0.56 carries over. Then by the time you're doing your fourth attack, it'll be 6.52 plus the 0.56, which will be a total of 7 attacks again within that 1 second. And then the 0.08 carries over in the 4 second combat duration. So pretty much you never lose the attack speed, it carries over. But mathematically, reaching a whole number or half of a number of a whole number is more efficient for you to get more damage out of your attack speed. It's not worth sacrificing sockets to put additional runes to just increase attack speed, excuse me, without knowing what you're doing. So hopefully you guys understand that. Hopefully it made sense. If it didn't, feel free to reach out to Wooksy and get a better explanation from him. Obviously he's the dev. He tweaks the numbers. He knows way more than I do. But and through all my testing and trying to see what did more damage and messing around with the attack speed and breakpoints, it all made sense to me after speaking with him, and you know why going after the breakpoints yielded more damage than flat elemental damage on a class. You know, so use that information to your advantage. Anyways, this is a point of the video here where we get into build variants. So let's do that. I've been doing them a little differently than my previous videos because I don't want to waste too much time and keep going through multiple tests, but you guys get the gist of it. Use what I'm telling you as a reference to obtain throughout the season and while gearing up. And these are just as good as any other item. Obviously, they won't be meta, but you're going to dish out very good damage, and you're going to be able to clear Inferno 5 with no issues. So let's dive into it. On the neck, I only have the Raven's Claw, but really, you can use any attack speed, crit chance, crit damage, and physical or strength neck, and it's going to give you pretty good damage for Inferno 5. I know Raven's Claw is very expensive, so that's not really a good secondary option. I'm sorry, this is what I tested it with though. But again, strength, attack speed, crit, you know, and even physical damage will be fine. For the helm, I use the Judge Jury as well as a good secondary. The Redneck, not bad. I tested Death's Visage, also not bad. Harlequin Crest didn't yield that much for this class, so I would not recommend getting it, especially since the numbers are outrageous for it now. Hopefully, unless it's really cheap, then you know you can use a Harlequin Crest. On the neck, you can use Rainbow. You can use Hellfire Torch, the Redneck Keychain, all are good variants. For the weapon, you can use Double Saw. You can use Doom Saw, really good Doom Saw. I would say second place. Annihilator is really good as well. Another build variant for one-handed shield is Breath of the Undying with the Blood Word shield. You could do that if you want to go more tanky. You can even put on Shadow Buckler for more dodge as well, for more survivability if you're having a hard time surviving. I'll do a test at the end here so you can see how much more damage the Angelic does. It's not really that crazy compared to the actual meta build, you know. But if you are able to get a Angelic, the same EC's Longsaw, then you're all set for the season when it comes to Redneck. For the chest, you can use Dark Shroud, Redneck shirt. I did test out the set bonus on the Redneck. Wasn't really that strong, but certainly viable for Inferno farming. You can definitely do that as well. If the pieces are going cheap on the auction house, you know, buy the Redneck set piece and use that for farming Inferno 5. You can use Fire God's chest plate. Devil's Cocoon was decent because of the +2 talents. The Mars Shroud, not so much. Don't use Mars Shroud. For the gloves, you can use Molten Hands. You can use Breach Gauntlets. For the belt, you can use Monkey Skin and any other skin belt with strength on it as well will help. You can use Razband for an additional ring. Potions, or really, you know, even Bottle of Radigates for movement speed if you want. And boots, you can use Assassin's Boots. You can use Redneck's Boots and Dark-Hide Boots with fire damage on it. You know, whatever's going cheapest. So out of all the options I gave you, look for which, you know, the ones that are really cheap on the auction house and put the build together. What's really going to make a major difference, obviously, will be your follower once you have these items on them, and your talents, as well as your relics. Relics, people don't seem to understand this. Relics are a massive component to the game. Massive. I'm talking like 150 million to like 300 million damage alone, depending on your relic setup and the class that you're using. So do not sleep on this. So, you know, dying all the time and losing your relics is really painful. really painful. I do a lot of testing, as I have done with, you know, all the classes now, and when you don't, if you do a test with no relics, you easily drop 150 to 300 million right off the bat, and it scales with you, right? So the stronger you get, the better the relics become as well. So do not sleep on this. You know, don't do a test on a dummy with 0 relics, without elemental break on your pet, and without 200 hero levels, and be like, yeah, this guy's build is ridiculous, I can't do that damage. Well, of course you can't, because you're missing 80% of what the game's about. It's not only just equipping gear, putting on your talents, and you're good to go. There is some in-depth to Herosiege. Not as much as Path of Exile, of course, and Grim Dawn, you know, but there is, you know, some in-depth stuff here that you can do in the game to, you know, to reach huge damage. One thing for simple is get your gear to 90 plus quality. Okay, you don't have to sock it at all. Get all your relics, and you know, make sure the talents are correct. Immediately, you're going to be doing hundreds of millions of damage, you know, easily, without going for the crazy rune word, without going for the 115% quality, and without going for 200 hero level. As long as you know what you're doing. These are other guides I'll release in the future. They'll be, you know, casual friendly. I know it'll help you guys, but hopefully this information here helps you guys as well. I've had a lot of comments and feedback that when you're going to do a guide for the casuals, when you're going to do a guide for the beginners. And it might be season 12, honestly. You know, I'm very busy in real life. I'm also going to be getting into WoW here next week on November 23rd. You know, probably by the time this video releases, I'm already into that. But use this to your advantage going forward. And when I come back and do more videos and guide for you guys, I will be more casual, you know, beginner player friendly. And we'll see how those videos and how that information also is received. Right? Because ARPGs is more for the hardcore players, but I know there's a lot more casual players than hardcore. I agree with you guys 100%. So when I start releasing those videos in the future, if they're well received, and you guys are, you know, subscribing, you guys are commenting and liking, that's the feedback I need to be like, okay, you know, these guys are absolutely right. Now, if I release a beginner guide and I get freaking 200 views on the video and I wasted 20 minutes on it, right? That's just common sense, guys. I'm not going to be making 17 beginner videos for every class, and they're going to be getting 100, 200 views. You also you have to understand where I'm coming from as well. The effort and time put in has to have the same reward. Okay, so at the end of the day, it's just business. It's nothing against you guys, and it's nothing against, you know, favoring the hardcore community over the casual. It's just common sense. Right now, these videos are taking track. They're flying. You know, a lot of people are watching them. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback, and I will be doing it for you guys. So the guys that are complaining about these builds not being realistic, okay, let's see in a couple of months when I start releasing beginner builds if you're going to be here supporting, commenting and liking and subscribing and showing the video support. Okay, so that way you benefit from it. All right, so I hope that's true, you know, because I hope everything that I release benefits somebody in one form or another. And it really is not about, you know, the views. I don't care if the video gets 200 views or 400 views, but it just shifts my focus, you know, work-wise, that, okay, I want to, you know, to release information that the masses is going to benefit from, as opposed to just, you know, 1 or 2 people, you know, because I'd rather help out more people than just one. But, you know, I will do what I can, guys, and thank you very much for the support. You guys take care and roll deep. Thank you very much, guys, for sticking with me through this journey of finishing the guides on all the classes. It's been amazing. Please don't forget to comment, like, and smash that subscribe button. Please check me out on Twitch. Stop by once in a while, say hi, smash that follow button. We're over there. Roll deep. Woo!